Behind him, a crowd of 37 countable strange figures stood there silently. Features were unidentifiable. Panic broke out in control again. They requested subject to speed up and return following the cable path. Few seconds later, screams were caught on the audio with panic from subject. 5 shots fired as subject aimed pistol at something massive. Hello everybody, I'm TheRubber. Today, we bring you an SCP Foundation Euclid class object, SCP-093. SCP-093 is a primarily red disc carved from a stone composite resembling cinnabar, with circular engravings and unknown symbols carved at 0.5 centimeters depth around the entire object. 093 will change hue when held by a living individual. The colors taken by 093 are still being researched to establish a link. Current belief holds that the changes depend upon regrets carried by the holder. If 093 is removed from a mirror and not held by a person, it will seek out the nearest mirror-like surface. 093 has been observed to travel in the largest possible circle while rolling, building up phenomenal speed. The mechanism of this acceleration is currently unknown. If an obstacle is between 093 and the nearest mirror-like surface, it will use this momentum to punch through the obstacle and continue on its course at this speed. It will only stop when a mirror-like surface is contacted. Despite tremendous impact velocities, no damage will be dealt to 093 or the mirror. A test procedure was initiated to establish why mirrors must be used to contain it. The results lead to the discovery of any living beings holding SCP-093 and placing it against a mirror will in fact move into the mirror. A series of testing on human interaction with mirrors while holding 093 have been authorized to ascertain the destination reached through this travel. Records below details the first testing. Mirror Test 1. Color blue. The test subject's codename D20384. Male, 34 years old, stocky, with a record of murder and attempted suicide. The subject was cooperative in this instructions for the entire test. He was required to wear a buckle harness strapped to the chest and attached to a tension pulley system for emergency retrieve. Subject was also attached to a video system with a camera mounted on its head. He was also loaded with technical equipment that would facilitate his mission of exploration, such as wrist-mounted light source, field kit bag, standard-issue Beretta 9mm firearm loaded with 24 rounds of ammunition, and recording equipment. He entered the provided mirror while holding SCP-093, which emitted a blue color. Outside technicians observed that the mirror retained a true reflection until the subject had completely passed into it, at which time the view changed to an outdoor landscape, heavily tinged in blue. The camera activates, flickers to view. The scene was composed of an open field with strong blue tones, similar to the entrance object. As a reference, the blue tones were absorbing most of the lightness in the picture. Despite this, subject indicates that the landscape shows no difference to that of a normal state. No discernible landmarks visible as subject pans view left to right. Only grass, weeds, and a breeze moving the taller grass. No trees, no living beings were visible. Subject moves forward as instructed, traveling for approximately 500 steps before something becomes visible. A patch of the land up ahead is barren, and grass can be seen dying as the subject approaches it. Approximately 300 steps forward, subject was standing before a hole in the ground. Such a hole shows signs of man architecture, but with unknown tools. It seems that it was not made by forces of nature. Subject was instructed to enter the hole. Despite protests from the subject, he agreed to use a pulley system, and the camera suffers a light shudder. About 100 meters of cable was used before reaching the bottom. The light source provided in field kit activated 50 meters down when outside sources became unreliable. Sweeping gestures of the light reveal nothing more than dirt, even at the bottom of the hole. The control station commented about the ongoing blue tinge in the recordings, but subject clarifies that it must be the connectivity problem. Subject prepared his firearm for personal safety and moved forward with the assistance of the light source. The tunnel turned from bare dirt to a concrete enclosure. Subject complains of a stench. The light source was revealed to be ceiling light fixtures, a series of which with less than a quarter broken while the others function. A series of 6 doors, 3 to a side, span before the camera view with a seventh door visible at the end of the corridor that has been blocked by what looked like generic metal shelving debris. Debris shows signs of rusting and was typical of retail store units, suggesting other human presences. Subject requested to try doors, in whatever order he chooses. Subject tried the first door on the right. The door was locked, could not open. The second door could not open either. The third door had the same results as the first. The door in front of the third door does open fully, and the light was bright in the room. The portable light was switched off at this time, as the subject pans the camera to inspect the room. The room was empty. The only remarkable thing was the dirty walls. According to the subject, the material on the walls looked similar to a melted plastic, but was brown in color rather than black. The next door has no handle, does not move when pushed. None of the doors can show internal elements through the spy holes. The door next to the entrance has a keyhole with a key still on it, but the back of the key was missing. With effort, the subject manipulates the key. He managed to open the door and immediately began coughing, complaining of a stench. Maybe it was because of the natural air condensed in such an abandoned place. This stench made the subject feel sick. With Control, asked if he could continue. The subject agreed and described the odor as sulfur. The walls of the last room were as bright as the floor. The ceiling resembles the brown molten plastic-like material in the fourth room. There was what it seemed to be some makeshift cot made from aged blankets with a pillow, a wooden crate containing open boxes of what appeared to have been foodstuffs, and a second crate in the room contains what appears to be empty water bottles that have dried out. It has been proved that the cave has a human origin. One of the boxes with the word cereal confirmed the theory. A book laid next to the cot, closed, no title or identifying marks. Walls were covered by old clipped articles with language that could not be read. Subject was asked to remove clippings for retrieval. All articles but one crumble at the touch due to age. The intact article was put in a field sample container and seems the most recent compared to the others. Audio on the tape went strange, and a high-pitched screeching noise like grinding metal dominated all communication for 3.5 seconds. When the noise stopped, the subject asked Control to repeat request, but Control made no request during that time as headsets were removed. Subject advised to leave room and stated that the door has begun closing slowly on its own, and if left alone, will close. Subject was advised to leave the room. A careful review of the following 10 seconds of the tape showed that as the camera pans, a figure was visible at the end of the tunnel where the seventh door was. The door was open only enough for a face to be seen through a crack just before the door silently closes. No details can be seen. Seeing nowhere else to explore, subject requested to return. As subject returned back down the tunnel, his camera feed does not change or show anomaly, but Control reports a sudden surge in cable movement, pulling an additional 100 meters of cable through before going slack again and then tightening. Finally, video feed showed subject ascending tunnels slowly while Control attempted to verify the integrity of the pulley system. Subject stated that he was not climbing. The rope was pulling him up. Panic sets in on both sides and subject informed to ready firearm. Upon reaching the top of the hole, nothing was visible on camera, and subject reported that nothing has changed in the landscape. Then, subject began a return trip following the path of the cable. The subject slowly panned the camera in full circle. On film, behind subject, a crowd of 37 countable strange figures stood there silently. Features were unidentifiable, and they lacked the blue hue that dominates the landscape. Panic broke in Control again, but subject only noticed that the cable had an angled path. Control requested subject to speed up and return following the cable path. Just seconds later, screams were caught on the audio with panic from subject. 5 shots fired as subject aimed pistol at something massive. Control saw a massive human being crawling on the ground, easily 50 times the size of a normal person with no facial features and a noticeably short arm reach, pulling itself toward the subject. Proximity fine details could not be made out, but at least one observer noted that the being appeared to have been shot from the marks in the otherwise smooth, featureless face. The communication was cut off, and the pulley system continued to pull in. Once the rope was fully retracted by Control Station, there was no trace of the subject. The only thing recovered was the field kit bag, containing the newspaper article and SCP-093. Viewer discretion is advised. Several shots were fired at the creature's face. When the creature's face fell on him and the camera was pushed to the ground, his screams were obscene. Hello everybody, I'm TheRubber. Today, we bring you SCP Foundation Euclid Class Object SCP-093 Part 2. SCP-093 is a red disk carved from cinnabar with symbols on it. It will change hue when held by a living individual. A series of testing on human interaction with mirrors while holding 093 have been authorized. To know more about 093 and its first mirror test, click here to watch Part 1. Records below details the second testing. Mirror Test 2. Color green. Test subject D54493 was a 23-year-old female with average physique and had a history of car robbery and second-degree murder of 2 children. The subject entered the provided mirror while holding SCP-093, which emitted a green color. Outside technicians observed that the mirror retained a true reflection until subject had completely passed into it, at which time the view changed to a farming landscape, heavily tinged in green. The camera was on. The subject looked up, and in front of her was a farmland. The field had been long abandoned, with the remains of a rotten scarecrow placed in the middle. On the right was a 2-story farmhouse, with a basement shelter entrance at one end. The subject then headed over and investigated the perimeter of the farmhouse. There, she found 2 children's bicycles leaning on the house near the cellar door. As the subject entered the cellar, on the stairs were boys' clothes, arranged in descending order, shoes to shirt. The subject started screaming at the control center and asked if this was some sort of sick joke. It was unknown if SCP-093 was linking the subject's past with her landscape. After several minutes, the subject agreed to continue. The basement was unremarkable, with several wooden frames lined up on the wall, with unnamed canned substances on them. Subject panned the camera across the basement slowly. It looked as if it had been abandoned for some time, and subject complained of a stench. The subject then opened and entered the hatch. Below the hatch was a white concrete tunnel. The inside of the hatch was spacious, about half the size of the actual cellar itself. There were 3 bunks, 1 for a couple and 2 for single use. Several boxes of food marked as cereal filled a waste container near the hatch bottom. On the beds were 2 skeletons, and on the floor was a third, lying next to a 6-shooter revolver. On the other side of the skeleton, a bound book was found. The subject retrieved and placed the book into a field kit container upon request. She was also told to keep the old clipped articles that were on a desk into the field kit container. The subject was told to leave the bunker. When the subject grabbed the ladder and was ready to leave, the camera caught a humanoid figure peeking down from the top of the tunnel. But subject stated that nothing was up there and started climbing up the ladder. At the top of the tunnel, the subject insisted that there was nothing there. She vomited immediately after the hatch was closed. After coughing for a while, the subject suddenly heard a noise. She was startled by the sound, but control reported no audio. Subject approached cellar hatch cautiously, pulled out firearm, and lifted her head just enough so camera can view the outside area. In the distance, approximately 700 meters from the farm, 2 massive humanoid beings were crawling across the landscape. They have no facial features. The arms they used for crawling were short at times and long at others. It's different each time they move. There was no rear area to the beings. All bodily design appears to end at the torso. The 2 creatures took approximately 10 minutes to disappear into the distance. Then, the subject began to panic and begged to return. Request declined. Subject instructed to enter the home from the cellar through a rusty hatch in the ceiling. The subject entered the kitchen first. All of the items were coated in heavy dust. The subject then entered the living area. There was a recliner, a couch, and a television, all of 1950s style design. The main door of the home was nailed shut with thick wood planks. Camera panned to a staircase leading upstairs. When subject reached the top of the stairs, there were 2 doors, one on each side of the hallway. and at the end of the hall, a dumbwaiter was inlaid into the wall. The door on the left led to a master bedroom. The bed was neatly made, but the wardrobe next to it was thrown open, and clothes were everywhere on the floor. Subject quickly left the room because of the horrible odor. The second door led to a shared children's bedroom, which seemed to belong to a boy and a girl. There was also a window which subject approached, and upon request, she moved the camera to capture the outside view. When the camera panned down and filmed the area around the house, approximately 300 figures were all staring right up at her. Subject asked to confirm the figures, but stated nothing was there. The subject was told to quickly return. Nothing happened when subject got out of the farmhouse. Subject returned through point of origin and mirror returned to reflective surface. SCP-093 relinquished. Mirror Test 3. Color violet. Subject was D84930. Male, 21 years old, and had a record of second-degree murder of a police officer during a drug bust. This subject was uncooperative. Subject entered the provided mirror while holding SCP-093, which emitted a violet color. The mirror retained a true reflection until subject had completely passed into it. The view changed to a cityscape, urban, lightly tinged in purple. Camera turned on and panned around the area. Subject was in a modern downtown district similar to a city like New York. The streets were almost empty, with only a few cars of unknown model. The subject wiped off a window that was covered in dirt and discovered that the inside of the car was completely filled with a strange brown matter. The other two cars were the same. However, the inside of the fourth vehicle was immaculate. The doors to this vehicle were unlocked, and subject entered the car and then quickly closed the door, hoping that he would be able to escape by cutting off the cable. Subject argued with Control over this issue. Subject looked around the cityscape from the car, while Control was discussing how to proceed since the city landscape was far larger than the previous test destinations. During one pan, a face was clearly seen staring into the car, and eyes were on the subject. However, this was not noticed until post-test footage review. Control soon informed subject to remain where he was, and a team of 4 armed personnel were dispatched through the mirror to join him. Subject was then instructed to remove his harness. Subject's video feed then ended and was replaced by a wireless camera used by the escort team. Subject left the car and moved with the team. They then entered a building with XEA Research Partners Incorporated hanging on all of the glass doors. In the lobby, there was a C-shaped receptionist desk with a PC terminal on the desk. The team approached and examined the PC, and Faithful OS appeared on the screen, which required a password to log in. After one failed attempt, the PC turned off automatically. Behind the receptionist desk were 2 elevator doors. Using the elevator on the right, the team was instructed to proceed to the highest floor, level 114, to get an overview of the city. At level 114, the doors opened, and the team entered a large lounge. A series of windows were open, and the team went over to place the camera outside. The city below was gray and silent. Some buildings in the city were covered with strange brown growth, as if a gelatinous mass were flung and then seeped down before hardening. From another window, the team noticed a highway that encircles the city, upon which crawled another of the large half-body humanoids, dragging itself with its elastic arms as witnessed in previous tests. It traveled the highway, then moved out of sight. The team then returned to the elevator and agreed to travel to level 74. The 74th floor was a doctor's office. At the reception desk, there was a sign-in form with the date of 1953. They opened a door sketched with the title Dr. Borisiskai, Blessed Purificationist, and a crucifix, which led them to a white dust-free hallway, with 2 examination rooms and a key-coded door at the end. A small amount of C4 was placed on the lock of the key-coded door and then exploded, forcing the door to open. The area contained 6 large containment capsules. 2 were broken, 1 was empty, and the last 3 had nude humans floating in them, with breathing masks. Attached to the front of these tubes were medical charts showing vital signs and conditions of these bodies. Control asked for a zoom of one of the patient's pages on the chart. It wrote, "Citizen Alberius Farafan struck out at a high father during a sermon, blaspheming that the Lord's tears did turn his daughter to be unright in mind and heart, thusly laying blame for her whorish activities at the feet of the High Father and his blessing. Alberius Farafan should bathe in the Lord's tears himself for a week to be cleansed of mind and soul, thus to prove his daughter's ways are fault of not the Father's hands and to give him peace of self." Subject started to panic. The camera panned to focus on him, and he was surrounded by entities similar to those witnessed in the first two tests. Control told them to stand still and wait. Subject screamed at the entities. Control requested one of the members to approach and recover him. The entities part to make a pathway for the approaching member, who lifted Subject to his feet and brought him out. The entities kept staring at the subject no matter where he moved to. Control requested the team to return immediately. Before leaving, a team member took a binder labeled "The Lord's Tears" on the reception desk and then put it in the subject's field kit. Upon leaving the building, Subject pointed at one of the large torsos crawling at the entry point. It turned its featureless head to look at the escort team, raised its head to the sky, and emitted a bellowing sound. Team leader issued them to move quickly. The creature on the highway extended an arm down to touch the ground. All but one member of the team passed through the entry point. Subject passed through entry point, and mirror returned to reflective surface. The subject quickly dropped SCP-093 but was executed by the team leader as Subject pulled out the field kit pistol. The uniform and possessions of the escort team member who was left behind were present and recovered, but the member himself is nowhere to be seen and does not respond to shouts, and his wireless receiver was recovered. Later review of the recovered camera showed the member was grasping for air and then turned to look up at the oversized torso. A brown gel dripped off the creature as it moves, but disappeared shortly after being dislodged. Several shots were fired at the creature's face. When the creature's face fell on him and the camera was pushed to the ground, his screams were obscene. Camera feed remained dark for approximately 65 seconds before light came back, and the camera filmed the creature crawling back to the highway. The member believed to have been absorbed by the creature and perhaps digested.